The Boy Scouts of America, otherwise known as the BSA, was inspired and modeled on the Boy Scout Association created by this handsome gent, Baden Powell,
in the Isles of Britain, somewhere around here. But in reality, the Boy Scouts of America was created by W.D. BSA. The story behind the creation of the BSA goes as follows. According to legend, he was lost on a foggy street in London when an unknown scout came to his aid, guiding him back to his destination. The boy then refused BSA's tip, explaining that he was merely doing his duty as a Boy Scout. Immediately afterwards, BSA met with a General Baden Powell, who was the head of the Boy Scout Association at that time. BSA returned to America and 4 months later founded the Boy Scouts of America. In the early 1900s, several youth organizations were active, and many became part of the BSA that we now know today. The BSA grew rapidly and became the largest youth organization in the United States. Early issues involved race, the younger boy problem, and the older boy problem, but soon troops began following the local community policy on race. For younger boys, the Cubbing program arose, and for older boys, rovering and exploring programs were developed. Additional programs and changes have occurred over the years to adapt the program to the youth of the day.
You may be wondering, what was the BSA's main goal? Well,
the BSA's goal was to train youth in responsible citizenship, character development, and self-reliance through participation in a wide range of outdoor activities, educational programs, and, at age-older levels, career-oriented programs and partnerships with community organizations.
The BSA sought out to teach scouts 2 very important things. The Scout Oath: on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout laws, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
And the Scout Law.
A scout is trustworthy, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
For younger members, the Scout method is part of the program to inculcate typical Scouting values such as trustworthiness, good citizenship, and outdoor skills through a variety of activities such as camping, aquatics, and hiking. The BSA has several locations in Florida, Minnesota, New Mexico, and West Virginia in the United States, and 2 in Canada, Manitoba and Ontario. These places allow Scouts to participate in various aforementioned outdoor activities, which are collectively called high-adventure bases. How did they help in the war effort? The Scouts were a popular choice for jobs that needed to be done. In 1941, some Scouts already operated a messenger service for the Office of Civilian Defense, or the OCD. Funny. Collected aluminum books, planted trees, and possibly did every single job some local official could imagine.
Name a job? They probably did it.
Probably wondering, all this work and what did they ask for in return? Nothing. That is the brilliance of it. However, they eventually became known as the poster boys of the war effort. No, not those poster boys. In actuality, the Boy Scouts of America was the main workforce in OWI poster distribution system founded by a man named Edward Dodd. Thousands of young men were responsible for the delivery of OWI's posters to shops all across the United States, urging people to recycle scraps of metal, rubber, and rags to be used in military supplies. It turned out that Boy Scouts were a natural choice for work at the grassroots level of the United States, and in 1942 there were 1,600,000 members, and almost every village, town, and city had a Boy Scout troop.
But here's the best part.
In addition to being clean-cut children and young adults, they could approach individuals' homes and businesses, kind of like a Jehovah's Witness, and be readily welcomed, unlike a Jehovah's Witness. The owner of OWI, Edward Dodd, thought it would be a great mistake not to take advantage of the eagerness of this organization to serve in this capacity.
You know what they say, you snooze, you lose. And now we travel all the way over the Atlantic Ocean into the country of Germany, where we shall bear witness to a totally different kind of youth. The Hitler Youth.
The figure of Adolf Hitler, and yes, this is an accurate picture of Adolf Hitler, was known to be the German populace as a wonderful embodiment of a politician that impressed itself on German youth as a binding model for how to give shape to the totality of their lives. The Hitler Youth movement changed over time from one of many competing youth movements to a powerful state-sponsored youth movement. Hitler, from the beginning, conceived a youth program as essential to the Nazi program. The Hitler Youth program was guided by an early Nazi convert, Baldur von Schirach. When boys entered the Jugendwolf age of 10, the boys took an oath. In the presence of this blood banner, which represents our Führer, I swear to devote all my energies and my strength to the savior of our country, Adolf Hitler. I am willing and ready to give up my life for him, so help me God, one people, one Reich, one Führer. The Hitler Youth program had 4 different phases, the predecessors going from 1923 to 1926, the early years from 1926 to 1932 when they had to compete with other youth groups. The government years, from 1933 to 1939, when independent groups were suppressed and young Germans were indoctrinated in preparation for the war. And finally, the war years, starting from the year 1940 going to all the way to the year 1945, when the Hitler Youth played an important part, including the formation of combat units. The guiding light behind the Hitler Youth and the Nazi government, which seized power in 1933, continued to be Baldur von Schirach, who was eventually tried in Nuremberg and hanged. Schirach was the leading Nazi in destroying independent youth organizations and in building the Nazi youth movement. It was Schirach's task to perpetrate the Nazi regime through generations by inculcating Nazi principles in the minds of German youth. At Nuremberg, it was suggested that the Hitler Youth and other Nazi youth programs helped to poison the mind of German people, which turned out to be a major step in preparing the German nation for aggressive youth.
According to Hisco.com, the future of the depends on its youth, and the German youth shall have to be prepared for its future duties. All German organized within the Hitler Youth. The German youth, besides being reared within the family and school, shall be educated physically, intellectually, in the spirit of National Socialism, to serve the people and the community through the Hitler Youth.
One thing that the Hitler Youth proved most effective was in organizing German boys. By the time formal conscription was introduced in 1940, about 97% of those eligible were members, and the older boys had received paramilitary training.
And you thought the drafts.
Many Hitler Youth boys did more than just home front war work, but actually saw military service and proved to be a very important part of the German military effort. It not only prepared boys for military service, providing physical and ideological conditioning, but also as a conduit for channeling the boys into the various service branches, the Gestapo, the SS, or just your typical Army, Navy, Air Regime, or ground troops. But once accomplished, the boys were no longer Hitler Youth members. The Hitler Youth not only provided military training, but the emotional and physical preparation for war, in addition to ideological indoctrination, was, after the Nazis seized power, the primary purpose of the organization. The Nazis did not tell the boys and their parents that they were being prepared for war, but in reviewing the program, that conclusion was definitely obvious. Hitler Youth was carefully organized to feed older boys directly into military service. Since military training was an important part of the Hitler Youth program, all Hitler Youth boys received weapons training, as well as training leadership skills and other skills useful to the military. There was even a special Hitler Youth division to provide special training for the Luftwaffe, Kriegsmarine, motorized skills, for the Reich-Marine, or other skills in smaller programs.
And I'm so those words.
On the outside of the greater picture, the Hitler Youth and the Boy Scouts of America look quite similar. They have similar outfits, they form troops, they patrols, they both have an oath, motto, yell, and flag. However, they are completely different groups altogether. According to Daniel Horn, most historians of the educational development of Nazi Germany have focused primary attention on the purging of Jewish liberal teachers, the burning of anti-Nazi books, and the opposition of racist and militaristic curricular and methodological innovation. In short, the Nazi Party spent far too much time on persecuting the minorities, usually the Jews, the gays, the gypsies, when they could have been helping their own country throughout all of their issues. They chose their self-pride over their very own countrymen. This is compared to the Boy Scouts of America as follows. A scout is concerned about other people. He does things willingly for others without pay or reward. 8 of 10 youth, 80%, are scouts, believe that helping others should come before one's own self-interest. Scouts show their commitment to help others through their actions. Significantly, more scouts than non-scouts say that they would visit a retirement home after school. Non-scouts are more likely to choose to go home and do something else. Boy Scouts are far more interested in helping the public instead of their own self-gain. This is something that definitely should be noticed. The Nazi educational revolution consists largely of an attempt to create a new man for the totalitarian regime through adoption of its ideology in the schools that function in the authoritarian manner after the introduction of an absolute leadership principle. The Nazis wanted to create the Aryan race, otherwise known as the 1%, or the German elite, with blonde hair, blue eyes, to be looked up to and to be ruled over by a supreme dictator, aka Adolf Hitler. And the overriding purpose of the Hitler Youth was to attract the political support of young Germans for National Socialism. Using ads and misleading articles, the Nazi regime showed that they had ulterior motives when they were enlisting boys into the Hitler Youth, unlike the Boy Scouts of America. Now, I don't want to sound biased, but as a Boy Scout, I'm going to lean toward the Boy Scouts of America, but I also choose them because of their ideology. Even though the Hitler Youth was for the people, it actually was set for the elite, not for the minorities. The BSA was meant for all people, regardless of race, and the goal has been to bring people together so that they could help their friends, family, and in total, their nation.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.